Hello, everybody. It's Larry Johnson, your host for A Principles Voices, and I'm delighted to have with me a young man by the name of Khalid Cannon. And of course, I kind of favored to him because he's a Yale grad, of course, but he's done something pretty unique, and it's a sports nonprofit, but in a little bit different role than we've seen before. So I want to welcome him to the show, and we're going to find out all about it. Thank you for your time, Khalid. It's a pleasure, sir.
Thanks for having me, Larry.
So tell us a little bit about you first, all right? And then we can talk about Put Me In. And by the way, you're the president, CEO, and
Chief Program
program
Officer.
officer. Got to get that right. Okay.
Wear all the hats right now.
All right.
A little bit about myself. Like you said, my name is Khalid, and I'm currently running Put Me In. But before that, I grew up on a farm in Alabama. It was just me, my mom, and my sister. My dad was incarcerated when I was about 4 or 5 years old, and that's something that's pretty common to a lot of kids across the country. There's currently 5 million children with a parent in prison or jail, but I was able to count myself as one of the lucky ones. I had a really strong community that came and supported me. I had aunts, uncles, a church family, grandparents, just a really tight knit community in northern Alabama that supported me and made sure I did all the right things. Whether that's picking me up, taking me to practice, making sure I had something to eat at the end of the game. Like that community made sure that I competed athletically and in the classroom. And when you do both of those things together pretty well, you end up in cool places like Yale. So I was proud to be a 3 year starter on the Yale offensive line and had an unbelievable experience there. Like going to the Ivy League was completely life changing. And not only just getting that world class education, but also all the doors that it opens. It really broadened my view of the world where me and my mom had never been on a plane before my official visit to Yale. So that in itself was completely opening up all of these new doors and new possibilities of places to go see. So for that, it's Yale was just an incredible experience. Had a great time there, great 4 years. While there, I studied chemistry and geology, and post grad, I worked for the world's largest gold mining company. So I like to tell people that I was a gold digger for 2 years. Uh, and then I ultimately ended up moving to Austin, Texas, where I've been working in consulting for the past 5 years until I shifted to taking over Put Me In the fall of 22.
That's a lot. I'm just listening to this. I'm still trying to in my own mind, I'm from Tennessee originally, from Nashville. The change between Northern Alabama and the Ivy League, I can turn it on. And that's a sea change. I mean, that's like two continents change. Um, and yeah. And so tell me, it doesn't look like, I don't know how many people even know this when I say this, but it doesn't look like you got captured by the J Press crowd.
No, I didn't fall into that crowd.
And
But
for my listeners, J Press is a men's clothing that makes Brooks Brothers look like wild and crazy. So uh, that that should tell you.
Funny enough, I think that was one of the first stores I stepped into on campus. That summer before freshman year, all the football players moved in and just give us a chance to get acclimated and kind of be on our own for the first time in our lives. And I think we were just walking around campus, walking down Broadway, and I popped into J Press just to see what was in there. And then I saw a pair of socks that were $75 and realized I'm not in Alabama anymore.
And they were probably some wild color or pattern too, right?
Exactly. Like the Argyle everything.
Yeah, of course, of course. Oh, you know, we're not in Kansas anymore.
Yeah, it was a bit of a shift going from Alabama to Connecticut. For the first thing, the weather was completely different. I'd never seen real snow before. Back home, if you get half an inch of snow, that turns to ice pretty quickly, and then the whole town shuts down for a week. I remember getting snow days, and there was no actual snow. It was just a little bit of an ice storm. But the school buses can't be on the road. There's no such thing as a snow plow or road salt. So there's no functioning in Southern Alabama.
We just waited out.
Yeah.
We just waited out. And I can hear it right now. Of course, in Nashville, whenever there was even the forecast of snow, and we got a little more than you did, but still, there would be a run at the supermarket on bread and milk. It was wiped out. You think you're going to get snowed in for a month, where they were talking, so.
Yeah, every kind of apocalyptic event has that same effect. We were right in like the tornado alley in Alabama, and any kind of tornado, hurricane, snowstorm, you have to get 10 loaves of bread, 10 gallons of milk to last it out.
Ah, great. So, a biologist, a chemist, you went to Texas, doing the same sort of thing, I presume. But then you got into this nonprofit. So, did someone come and say, "Hey, I want you to do this"? Was this your idea? How did that happen?
It was one of those things that was just a strike of fate, I think. So at the time, I was working for a consulting company, and we were doing strategy execution consulting. And with my mining background, I was specializing in resources and mining and metals. And so we would work with executive teams and spread their strategy down throughout the organization. Um, but then the pandemic hit, and there weren't a lot of projects going on. I was spending most of my days just having walk and talk catch ups with my friends from school. I'd call somebody and just do laps around some of the blocks here in Austin with the COVID mask on, and just catch up to see what they were doing and how they were killing time. On one of those lucky days, though, I was catching up with my best friend Peter, and he was telling me how, yeah, life's good right now. Like we're quarantining, but I'm also working on this side thing with another Yale football guy. He's an older guy, class of 2000, and he's trying to help kids with parents in prison or jail. We don't know exactly what we're going to do yet, but we want to help them, and it's going to revolve sports, and we're figuring that out. And I hung up, and I immediately texted Pete back. It's like the cylinders were firing. It's like I was one of those kids. It was one of those things that you don't really think about. You don't think that you're other. You face these adverse situations, and you just figure out how to overcome it. There's the researchers in the world call the children of incarcerated parents the hidden victims, because no one's walking down the middle of the street saying, "Hey, my mom or dad's in jail." So most times people are just holding it inside of them. And I don't think I told many of the people I was at Yale with that my dad was in prison, that we were going through these type of things. So my friend didn't even think to mention that. He was just like mentioning it in passing. And I immediately had to get introduced to Matt Blodgett, who was founding this. So we set up a Zoom call the next week. I told him my story. He told me his. And we both kind of teared up just because we were kindred spirits. We were both offensive linemen at Yale with a father in prison and double majors, and we've just had this such identical journey 17 years apart, that we teared up, and we just kind of shared our brotherhood there, and that set up this journey where we call it Tears on the Job. The work that we're doing now, it's very emotional, and I feel like Matt and I are kind of crying on Zoom calls probably once a week. But from there, from that first interaction, Matt and I would meet weekly. I was doing volunteer work on the back end of setting up the payment processing system and doing some of the fundraising decks. And I was one of those early volunteers of us launching the program before even fully incorporated. And then we got up and running in 2021, enrolled our first 10 kids, and we had a good couple years, and we got some funding to fund someone full time. And Matt and the board came to me, and they said that we think you'd be the perfect fit. And at first I thought they were crazy. Uh, but after but after thinking about it, it just made sense. But given my career trajectory of working for a large corporation and then consulting for large corporations, and then I switched to another consulting firm where I was consulting for very small startups and helping them scale from $1 to $5 million a year annually to 15 million. So taking that same strategy of scaling software companies and applying that to put me in where we think of ourselves as a tech-enabled nonprofit. It just made sense, especially because I'm one of those success stories. When you think about the kids in our program and where we want them to go, we want them to be like me. And it's just easy for me to tell our stories because I was one of those stories.
So, what are the ages of the children that you work with?
Yeah, so we work with kids as young as 5, 6 years old. We'll enroll kids in the program in their first grade, and then we stay with them until they graduate.
From
So
high school.
yes, I don't think we touched on like the actual what we do as a program, and that's we provide $1,000 a year in annual financial aid scholarships for children to play sports, and that goes towards league fees, equipment, and travel. And we do that because there's already thousands of leagues across the country, and there's tons of opportunities for kids to get involved. But right now, the biggest barrier for the population we serve is money. So we think of ourselves as investing in the potential of these children by removing those barriers. So the kids in our program use the money we give them to get involved and try out new sports or go deeper in the sports that they love. And so with that, It's just amazing to see some of the journeys that they're on. So we start with kids in first grade. We stay with them annually until they graduate. We're super proud. We have our first two high school graduates this year. One of them is going to be playing junior college softball in California, and the other one is going to an HBCU in Mississippi. And we're just super proud of where they've come on their journey and how all like the changes in confidence and self-esteem that we've seen them through sports.
So, how are these kids recruited? Number one, and two, how are they selected?
Yeah. So starting off, it's kind of been a journey where our very first year, we only worked with other nonprofits as referral partners. So since our program tries to keep things very simple, where we're the investment arm of sports, we work with other nonprofits that have the mentoring and the coaching, and they have the day-to-day relationships with families.
I see.
And so we reach out to them and we say, we've got 3 spots open for you, or we have 5 spots open for you this year. And then they refer kids to us. And on one hand, that's really easy for us because they've already gone through the vetting. They've shown a demonstrated interest in being involved in these kind of programs. So they're going to take advantage of our services and really maximize their potential. And then so that worked for us a lot, really well early on. But we kind of came to the realization that not a lot of other nonprofits are children of incarcerated focused. So it's if we go to a large organization like the Boys and Girls Club, then they might have 100 kids in their program, but only 2 kids qualify. And those 2 kids also aren't raising their hand saying, I should be a fit for this program. So it was a little slow and hard to identify the perfect fits early on. And one of the things that we started doing was going direct to source. So I went to a prison in Kansas last summer and spoke and told my story of growing up with a father in prison and how sports changed my life. And then told some of the success stories of some of the kids in the program we have now who are doing amazing things. And they've seen so much growth. And then at the end of that, I passed out postcards to these men in Kansas, and they filled out information for their children and their children's caregivers. And we started following up with them. And from that trip, we're able to go direct to source. And that's a proven model now where we can really go into any city across the country and we can go to a local prison, tell our stories, launch, and have kids enrolled in a week. It's
I
super fun.
really, I really like that. First of all, you identify people who are motivated right off the bat. Uh, and then these men that are in prison, if they have any feeling at all for their family, they feel at a loss. What can I do? How do I make up the fact that I'm not there? And then you come along and present, and you're a living example of this. You're not just some high-paid, slick do-gooder that comes to town. And I have problems with that. In case you could figure that out, um, you're the real deal here, and that resonates with people, and you can talk, and then they fill out the card, and then you contact the custodian, the person who's responsible for the child, and then you interview the child, I guess, once they
Yes. So once we refer to a kid or a family, we give them an application to fill out, and the application is pretty quick, but it's just like another little bear to show effort and to show that they're interested in the program. And
Mhm.
so ask some questions for the kids to fill out. So we ask the kids their favorite athlete and why they like sports, and just getting them involved. And then from there, we set up a 30-minute Zoom interview with the caregiver. And I'm introducing myself to her, making sure she knows how the program works, walking them through a mobile app that we use to distribute funding across the country, and just making sure they're comfortable with everything and letting them know how we as Put Me In operate.
So now you've gotten someone enrolled, and then there's been a distribution of funds. What sort of accounting or verification do you have? And number one, and number two, I presume there are some requirements for continuing participation. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yes. So the continued participation piece, we just require proof of enrollment in school. At the end of the day, we're not trying to develop the next Julian Edelman. We're trying to develop leaders. So we want them to be active and engaged in school. Like so they always send us our report cards. If the report cards aren't as pristine as we'd like, we always shoot messages and say, are there other ways that we can help? So we've introduced kids to tutors. We've introduced them to other nonprofits that can provide some more wraparound services. One of the things that we do tell the mothers is we can be as involved or uninvolved as you'd like. But we're at the stage now where we do have some freedom and leeway where we can be a little over supportive where we're needed. But in terms of the verification piece, this goes back to 2022, or sorry, the summer of 21 during our first cohort. We realized that for kids to make requests. The moms would either email us, text us, call us. Even we even got some letters in the mail saying, "Can you buy this or can you reimburse us for that?" And that just became a huge monster to manage, for getting all of these requests from different sources. So we worked with Alex Horvitz, who was our interim CPO and intern at the time, and she developed our mobile app. She did a great job of looking at how we're receiving all this information from families and understanding their pain points, their problems, and how we can meet them where they are, so that this could be a super simple process. And so through our mobile app now, caregivers will log on and they can make those requests super quickly. And then when they're requesting for those three buckets we talked about earlier, they select either direct purchase. So they'll send me a link to a website like an Amazon or Dick's Sporting Goods, and I'll make that purchase directly and ship it to their house. Or additionally, they'll do a reimbursement. So they'll show me a receipt and I'll reimburse them for that receipt and the purchase of the goods that they had. And the cool thing about this, though, is the transparency it gives us into our program, where families are spending $1,000 a year on sports, and I know exactly where that $1,000 is going. So just we think of ourselves as a very efficient distribution method, where any kind of financial aid going through our mobile app is incredibly pristine.
So that illustrates that this is not a block grant program. This is not a transfer of funds. It's a fund they can draw on for that purpose, is what you're telling me.
Yeah,
And
exactly. Like we do make some rejections. Like there's some things that are outside the lines of sports that we can't quite cover. But we also do have some leeway. Like one of my favorite requests that I've granted was for a kid named Rodney who was competing in a Rubik's Cube tournament. And I was like, I didn't know they had these tournaments, but yeah, we can absolutely cover that. And then he also went out and won the tournament. So that was really cool.
okay, all right. This is fascinating. Now I see the green hat in the back that says "Put me in," and I see the name tag, the logo on your jacket. That's put me in. That's put me in the play. Is that what that means?
Put me into the game. Like it goes back to the song "Put Me In, Coach." We when you think about what we were talking about earlier, where there's so many opportunities out there for kids to get involved, and they just have that barrier of access, and our job is to put them in, give them an opportunity to get involved, give them better choices, better role models to be around, where they can have a consistent coach in their life for a season. That's someone that can show them all of these cool techniques, all of these skills that they're going to need later on in life. Like the goal for our program, like I said, isn't developing the best athlete possible. It's giving kids the opportunity to improve their self-esteem, self-confidence, build resilience, work on their problem solving and communication. Like you learn all these things through sports, and at the end of the day, winning and losing doesn't matter.
I like that. So I see yellow and green. Where'd those colors come from? Are they just some designer's wish list? Oh, how did that happen?
Yeah, so we worked with a great designer named Crystal Lauk, and she did some amazing pro bono work for us. And so if you look at the logo on this, it's like a text message, because we always knew we wanted to develop technology around the program. So it's, if you think about our mobile app that has texting and we can communicate directly with the mothers, that's where that design comes from. And then thinking of us as a sports organization, we've got the green of a football field and the bright yellow for the scoreboard. So it's everything's intentional in that in what we're building.
I like that very, very much. So, so you're coming up on, you're right now in the middle of your recruiting season, your vetting season for the fall. Is that where the cycle you're in?
So we kind of break our year, since I'm the only full-time employee. I try to break my year into two halves. And so the first 6 months of the year is recruiting and enrollment. So we just finished enrolling the 2024 cohort, and we've got about 100 kids in the program in 14 states. So now we're shifting gears to fundraising to figure out how much money we can bring into the door and keep the program going, and also how many more kids we can add in next year's enrollment cycle. So we're looking to really increase our funding engine here, and making sure that the program's sustainable and also has that sweeping impact, where we're really proud that we have 100 kids in the program, but there are 5 million kids in the country right now that could be eligible for what we're doing. And so that's a drop in the bucket. And right now we're just looking for more people to help that can bring money in and really start increasing our impact.
So you're looking to build your revenue base to serve more. You've got 100 children in there now. You said from 14 states. Have you given any thought to what your growth model would look like? And what I mean by that is, would you continue to do everything centrally? Would you begin to have regional or satellite efforts? and then that also would coordinate in some way with the fundraising. Have you given any thought to that?
Yeah, so I think we want to kind of continue to think of ourselves as a tech company where we do things on a central basis, but also dispersed. But because of the mobile app, we never need to have a true put me in headquarters. Right, since right now I'm the only employee, wherever I am is headquarters. We're looking to hire someone for our full-time fundraising position later this fall, but we're very location agnostic in that sense as well. When we think of our long-term team, and put me in never needs to be more than 10, 15 people. When we think about I spend, because of the mobile app, I'm currently spending 1 to 2 hours a week max distributing funding. Everything is so quick and streamlined in how we operate that we don't necessarily need to develop regional hubs like the Boys and Girls Club around the country. The thing that we're just trying to grow is the access into different regions from the families and the partner programs. We think of the partner programs as what that local branch can be, where they have those day-to-day relationships, and we still love knowing our families. I get calls from some of our moms all the time. I spoke to one mom for 30 minutes on Christmas this year because we are that close with them. Because I see every single transaction that's coming through, I know exactly what they're up to right now. Like, oh, Makari just bought new boxing gloves, so boxing season's about to get going, or Cam needed new cleats, so he's getting into flag football season. And so once I know that, oh, now he's shifted to basketball shoes. All right, the seasons have shifted. I'll give him a call and say, how's basketball going? How did football wrap up? And we've got relationships now that are really important to me, and it's powerful.
Oh, and when you grow, um, you still want that personal contact, but that will require more people like you.
Mhm. Definitely. One of the positions that we're really looking at in the next probably 6 to 12 months is a program coordinator that can do that 1 to 2 hours a week of program distribution, but also having relationships with the families. And if we can scale those touch points, which is some of the things that the families care about the most, then I think we have a truly successful program.
Yeah, it's about the human factor, is it not? It's not about the money.
Exactly.
As
Like when you think about like the story I was telling earlier, where I was lucky because I had the village, we're trying to recreate that village, and that starts with money, and it starts with exposing to other people in their neighborhoods that are going through these things, but also having letting us do that expanded village is also something that's just super impactful. For instance, one of our young girls who's a track runner in the Bay Area, she's going to be competing in the Junior Olympics in College Station at the end of July. And I was talking to her mom because they had a request, and I was just checking in to see how things were going. And she's like, she's really nervous for Junior Olympic trials. She's had a great season, some ups and downs, but she's just getting really nervous at the finish. And I was lucky enough that one of my friends here in Austin is Gabby Thomas, and I reached out to Gabby, who's taking off for Paris for the Olympics in a few days. But I reached out to her and said, we've got this young girl who's an amazing runner who really looks up to you and is just a little nervous. Do you have any advice for her? So Gabby sent me a 60-second video giving Alani encouragement and telling her what Gabby's process is on the blocks. I sent that over to Alani's mom, and I got a text immediately. Alani's so excited. She's running around the house, just really fired up about this 60 seconds from Gabby changes Alani's life. And now Alani is gearing up to compete in the Junior Olympics and can't wait. I'm going to drive over and watch that. So it's going to be really cool to meet them in person for the first time.
so they live reasonably close to you then.
So they live in California, but the Olympics is going to be here in Texas. So that's a short ride over for me.
Ah, okay, all right. I'm trying to figure this out as we go along.
We're all over the place these days.
All right. Yeah. What was I going to ask you? You're talking about that, and you're talking about the Olympics and what have you. There's something else. Well, it'll come to me. But so, what are your top two challenges that you encounter?
So
Macro, micro, either way.
right now, the biggest challenge is definitely funding. And I think everyone is going through that same thing in the nonprofit world right now. But for me, I've got we approach put me in as a business, and I'm using the for-profit lens. So I don't have a ton of fundraising experience. Everything else from the operation side of things, that's super easy. Like that's what I've been doing since I graduated college. But in terms of fundraising, that's something that's a whole new world that slowly working on, hoping to get better. But That's going to be that's our limiting reagent right now. Where if you think about our equation, we've identified how to get kids in the program really quickly. We've identified how to distribute funding to them very quickly and efficiently. Now it's just how do we raise money to continue that cycle and keep growing. Um,
So, and how long have you been doing this now? You said you just graduated someone from high school.
Yes, so this is our fourth year as a program. So we started two of our first girls were ninth graders in the Bay Area, and now they've just graduated. So it's cool to kind of see that compound growth in them as they've been in the program for 4 years.
But you're looking to start people in first grade and go all the way through high school.
Yes. So one of the cool trends we see there too is our kids in that first to seventh grade are using the funding as exploratory. They're trying a new sport each season. Got kids that bounce around and do karate 1 month, and then baseball one season, and then basketball the next season, and they're really getting to become well-rounded individuals where they're meeting different people in each of these sports, and they're learning new skills. And they're really trying to figure out what they like as well. And then for our older kids, they're using it as accelerator funding. So they're getting private coaching, they're getting top line equipment, they're being able to participate in elite travel teams. And so that's unlocking a different world for them as well.
When you were talking about trying different things, it made me think of something I heard last week. There was a discussion about I think regarding the Secret Service, and they were talking about the different martial arts, the jiu-jitsu, the this, the that, and all the different. Well, a jiu-jitsu can take down this person or this person. Or you don't want to box with somebody that does this or whatever, you know. And they're all these little wrinkle. Oh, I know who it was. It was Jocko Willink. I know
Yeah.
you know Jocko is okay. And they were talking about, well, if you're going to go to wars, you don't want to box. If you don't know how to box, you don't box. You do something else, you see, and you do this. And I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense. And that's how you figure out how you're going to defeat your opponent there. That's what he was talking about. It was an episode on asymmetrical warfare, Khalid, is what it was. And that warfare takes a lot of different forms, not necessarily with guns or fists. It's also your lifestyle too. You know, he told the story about um, a friend of his who was always the skinny, weak kid, and he could never get a girl because they went for the football players and the this, that, and the other, and good-looking kids. And the football player always spent all of his money on fast cars, and this guy invested all of his money. Fast forward 20 years, and the football player is still buying cars, and the skinny kid owns $1 million company. So you just that's what he's talking about. So you never know what's going to happen. Uh, so, so then, did we answer the question about problems? Yes, we
Yeah.
did.
Yeah, I think yeah. So it's kind of comes down to fundraising and introductions, and we would love to speak with anybody who's interested in learning more about our program.
Okay. All right. Well, we're going to ask people how they can get in touch with you at the end of this thing. Um, so, you want to grow it. What's your goal? 1,000, 10,000?
It's hard to put an immediate number on because, like I said, there's so many kids out there that I think it's doing a disservice if you set a cap on it. Um,
Well,
I
here's what I think about goals, Khalid. All right. From a fundraising perspective, goals should always be floors, not ceilings. So, in some ways, they're benchmarks. So, when I work with clients, I tell them, let's get a goal established that's challenging but doable. All right. And then once we've achieved that, then we can start looking above. So, what would be your next enrollment goal that you'd like to achieve?
so far we've doubled every year in size. We started with 10 kids in 2021, then 25, then 50, and then now we're at 100. Uh, I think I think our goal for the next 3 years could be to get to 1,000 kids. I think
Okay.
that's definitely reasonable. If you were doing 1,000 kids, that's $1 million a year in funding going directly to children of incarcerated parents.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something once we have our fundraising engine up and running, that's definitely feasible.
Okay. Challenging but doable.
Oh,
That's
always a challenging goal.
yeah. Um, well, you're a ball player. You don't want just to walk down the field. You know, I mean, you want some of the opposing team chasing you or trying to block you or tackle you or all three. So yeah. Now,
Exactly. Like, all the sports cliches are really applicable in the work that we do. One of my friends always likes to say, "Choose your hard." Um, if, for instance, it's hard to work out, but it's also hard to be out of shape and go upstairs. So you have to choose your hard. And for us, it's gonna be hard to get $1 million a year and support 1,000 kids, but it's also even harder for us to sit back and think there's 900 kids right now that we could be serving that we're not. So
that's right. That's
perspective.
that's right. Well, is there something that we haven't discussed that you'd like to bring up?
I know this has been a ton of fun. I mean, I would love to share one of the stories of one of our kids in our program who's we're super proud of right now. I mentioned Rodney and his Rubik's Cube earlier, but Rodney's been one of our original kids from the first year in the program. And when he joined us, he was playing in about a $35 a year rec soccer league in the Bay Area. And he was the best player in that soccer league. So when he came to us, his mom used the funding to get him into an elite travel team in the Bay, and every player on that travel team is going to a private school. I think it was maybe the town school. So very wealthy. Most of those families are tech, VC investors, and he was all of a sudden exposed to a completely different world. Rodney had a great summer playing with that team that year. They went around beating every other team in California, and he was still the best player in the league and on the team. And at the end of the season, he looks at his mom, and it'd be easy for him to say, like, "Oh, mom, I'm going to be a professional soccer player. I'm really good." But instead, he looks at his mom and he says, "Mom, I'm just as smart as these other kids. Why can't I go to a private school?" From there, his mom signed him up for scholarship opportunities, and he got enrolled into a private middle school in California or in San Francisco. And then there was a bit of an adjustment period, obviously, but he ended up crushing school there and doing really well. And from there, he started working on application essays to start going to some of these elite high schools. And he was just accepted to the best private school in San Francisco and is excited to enroll there on a full scholarship. And one of the things that was really heartwarming for me is in those essays, he was talking about Put Me In and sports and how sports has changed his perspective and connected him to new people. And so that's one of those huge success stories that we're super proud of. We're trying to surround kids with villages and give them more opportunities. And we're seeing it work.
That's pretty dramatic. So then participating in team sports is a great leveler, is what you're telling me. So that even though the other boys are coming from more privileged backgrounds, he's accepted as an equal because he performs on the team. That's what
Exactly.
you're okay.
Sports are the great levelers in life. Everyone, there's different levels of athleticism. There's different levels of capabilities and talent, but it all comes down to effort when you're actually on the field. So that's an opportunity for everyone to be equal.
It is, and if you're pulling your weight on your team and you're part of the team, they all accept you as a member of the team. Um, I like that very, very much, Khalid. Very
Thank
much.
you. I'm
Um,
lucky.
you're blessed. What's the definition of luck where preparation meets opportunity? Yeah, it just doesn't fall out of the sky. No, no. Um, well, uh, uh, everyone, we've been listening or been having delightful conversation with Khalid Cannon, and I have a feeling he's going to be back at some point. We're going to talk to him again, but he's the CEO and president of Put Me In, and if you have any interest in youth sports, this is the guy you should talk to. So, if they wanted to reach out to you, Khalid, how would they reach you?
Yeah, it's easy to find me on LinkedIn, or they can shoot me an email at khalid.cannon@putmein.org. Uh, and would always love to connect and talk to people that are passionate about youth sports, opportunities, or helping system impacted people. Right now, we're really just trying to get our name out there and expand the impact that we're having. So always open to conversations.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Everyone, next week, we'll have another voice doing pretty significant things. And so thank you for your time today, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks, everyone.